are you?
I'm Batman.
Wow, Jack has made another video essay on the Dark Knight trilogy. Predictable. I know. You guys know too. I love the Dark Knight trilogy. This set of films mean the absolute world to me. I think about them every damn day. They're special. But something I've been finding out quite recently is that this trilogy is kind of dead. Or, at least on Twitter, it is. You see, I use Twitter a lot. Link in description, by the way. And when I do, I often see a certain group of people attack these films, calling them overrated, too dark, uninteresting, uninspiring. Now, this group of people are known as Raimi shills. As most of you know, Sam Raimi directed the original Spider-Man trilogy, another great superhero trilogy that's fun, heartfelt, and very nostalgic at times. However, I do quickly want to mention that these films don't compare to the Dark Knight trilogy at all. Or at least, that's my opinion on them. And hey, it's great to have an opinion, of course. I want to make that clear from the get-go. Opinions are ways to express your beliefs and thoughts on something. They're good, but they're also not factual in any way, shape, or form. Remember that, because this video is an opinion too. So without further ado, let's get back to talking about the Raimi shills. Now, Raimi shills can be quite vicious at times, and they're not the worst people on Twitter or anything, but, I mean, I've come across some that'll just block you for saying The Dark Knight is better than Spider-Man 2, so, yeah. But, I get it. These people love the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy as much as I love the Dark Knight trilogy, and that's cool. I'm happy they enjoy something like that, but I've come to this sad realization that the Dark Knight trilogy is not as popular as it used to be. Now, I know what some of you may think. The Dark Knight Rises came out almost 8 years ago. Of course it's not as popular as it once was. However, Spider-Man 3 came out nearly 12 years ago, yet on Twitter it still somehow manages to keep its relevance. The Dark Knight trilogy, well, it doesn't. It's kind of dead. The unpopular opinion that once was Spider-Man 2 is better than The Dark Knight is becoming the norm. I've seen people praise this Spider-Man trilogy and crap on The Dark Knight trilogy more than ever before, and honestly, that terrifies me. You see, a mere few years ago, saying the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films were better than the Dark Knight trilogy was practically treason. People on Twitter would rip you to absolute shreds. But now that role seems to have reversed, and I think I know why. The lack of Batman and the rise of Spider-Man. What do I mean by this? Well, let me explain. The arguably last good Batman movie was The Dark Knight Rises way back in 2012. Now, I know some people love Batman v Superman, but generally speaking, that film was deemed not too good overall. However, with Spider-Man, there seems to be a new Spider-Man-related movie or game released every year. For example, 2016 you had the first appearance of Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War. In 2017, you had MCU Spider-Man get his own solo film called Spider-Man Homecoming. And in 2018, you had Spider-Man fucking die in Avengers Infinity War, then the release of Spider-Man PS4, and to cap the year off, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And now in 2019, we've already had Spider-Man return in Avengers Endgame and get another solo film. The craze for Spider-Man is through the roof currently. With new movies coming out almost every year, people feel the need to go back and, watch older Spider-Man movies. And of course, during their rewatch of the older films, they stumble across the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. With no new Batman content recently, people have forgotten about the Dark Knight trilogy. They've forgotten how good of films they are. They're more focused on how good a film Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is. And again, don't get me wrong, they're good movies. But in the process of people rediscovering these movies, the Dark Knight trilogy, my favorite set of movies of all time, they got swept away. With the praise of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, people go to Twitter and will talk about how good of films they are. It's human nature at this point to talk about stuff you like on the site. One person mentions it, another person realizes the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are good, and then another, until the point where people turn their backs on anything that isn't relevant, and in this case, that's the Dark Knight trilogy. And that is how Twitter has killed it. Yet there still might be hope for the Dark Knight trilogy to make a comeback. In 2021, there will be yet another Batman movie, The Batman. Let's hope. that in anticipation of that film, people will come across the Dark Knight trilogy again and praise it as it deserves. Maybe, just maybe, the Dark Knight can rise.